A wrestling career, and more importantly, the life of a family man, was cut tragically short, and everybody is left wondering what could have been. What could have been for the adorable one, Adrian Adonis? I'm John Renton with my review, Dark Side of the Ring, The Tragic Fall of Adrian Adonis. And oh boy, this was certainly sad, wasn't it? It really is just up in the air what would have happened with Adrian Adonis's career, given how he rose to prominence and then through various vices, basically ended up, working other territories, and then the tragic circumstances that led to his death. Well, the second half of Dark Side of the Ring is in full swing. I really hope they are able to do a season 5, perhaps on a network that actually most people get. That being said, that's another story for another day. I'm really glad Dark Side of the Ring is back after taking last Tuesday off because it was 4th of July. And I admit that I am not as familiar with Adrian Adonis' career as other people. I know of some of his time in the AWA and obviously like the stint that he had in WWE. And it's really remarkable just how quickly he fell physically and how he seemed to be getting himself back in better shape. But on July 4th, 1988 in Newfoundland, good God. Good God, just seeing that stretch of state highway, that's something. I know nothing about Newfoundland, that is. But oh boy, that whole stretch must have not been fun even in the summer. So, Bret Hart, Dave Meltzer, Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, and others, they chime in. Some good talking heads here. Uh, I, I think one thing they probably could have done a little bit more was talk about, even though Adrian Street probably did it better, in all honesty, Adrian Adonis leaning into the gay stereotypes, the flower shop, the talk show, the feud with Piper, all that. I really do wish that they would have leaned more into and talked more about the fact that he was all in on, and it was almost like the Dusty Rhodes Polka Dots thing a few years later, where Vince gave somebody a character, somebody that, or a character that was so far and away from who they actually were, but then they turned it around on him. It was like, it's such good shit, pal. Oh, shit, he turned it on me. Ha, ha, ha. Ow. Really shouldn't try to do that Vince McMahon impression, but grew up in Buffalo, was a 90% Italian neighborhood. Anthony Gugino, who's a friend of his, talks about his various stints with the law, or various run-ins with the law, and the crime that they committed, how Adrian's well connected. Bret Hart talked about that. Bret Hart was great here. I mean, knowing Adrian, getting to know Adrian, especially when he got to WWE. Keith, Adrian, and that's the only time I'm gonna say his actual name because didn't know the guy. But he loved wrestling. He wanted to get into wrestling. He started in Amarillo and was doing the $10,000 challenge where fans would get in the ring. You last a certain amount of time with Adrian, you win $10,000, and Adrian would always knock him out or stretch him, do that stuff. It's an old territory thing, as old as the hills, goes back to his circus days, the carnival days. And then he would just protect the business because Adrian did truly love wrestling. He lands in the AWA, and a natural, he was cut. At least his cut compared to how he would end up. And he was in good shape. He was doing some good stuff. And him and Jesse Ventura were a phenomenal team. Adrian could talk. He could also work. Jesse could talk. Jesse couldn't work. That's why Adrian was there. Adrian would do the upside down bump. He was the golden boy. It was just, he would do the bump in the corner like Ray Stevens did, or like Ric Flair would do later on. And worked with the high flyers. Greg Gagne jumping Jim Brunzell. That was some good stuff. Getting to see some of this old AWA footage was really nice. And then Bret wasn't sure that Adrian would really take to him. Like, that Adrian probably saw him as a promoter's kid. And Jim Neidhart was like, no, he's cool, don't worry. There was partying, the 80s. It's the 80s. Do a lot of coke and vote for Ronald Reagan. Do. If anybody gets that reference, I love you guys. Bret wanted to sit on a learning tree, so to speak, not like Ernie Ladd. He ain't gonna come and sit on a Lennon tree. I'm sorry to every Ernie Ladd fan out there. I'm sorry for that terrible impression. But let's just say that, you know, Brett admitted, like many others, did coke, but realized it was going to be bad to stay up partying, that you had to wean yourself off of that, and you couldn't do that stuff. Unfortunately, Adrian kept doing coke, and he wasn't the only one. I'm just saying that right now. I'm not casting, or, you know, throwing disparaging remarks towards Adrian, but it was bad. He was a different kind of guy at home. His wife spoke highly of him. His two daughters, one you could definitely tell was his daughter. I'm just saying, really did look like him. He loved watching the Three Stooges. He treated the kids well, treated the wife like royalty, like an angel, as Bret Hart described. Unfortunately, on the road, he was coked up. He was having issues. He was beating up jobbers. And then he just wouldn't care. He just would not give a good goddamn toss. He would just beat the shit out of these jobbers. And some of that footage was hard to watch. And then very little mention, I noticed, of him teaming up with Dick Murdoch and being tag team champions. Very little mention of that. I was a little bit surprised. And then the makeover gimmick, him, you know, being the adorable one, leaning into the gay stereotypes, got a lot of boos from fans, got a lot of reactions, both good and bad. Here's Dan Spivey. God, he looks horrible, is what I noted. Huge vein on the side of his head. Dan Spivey, he definitely looked different in 1986 than he would, even by 1992. I mean, hell, he was Waylon Mercy, for God's sakes. No, really, longtime fans may have forgotten that. And then he faced off against him at one house show that ended badly because Adrian just beat the shit out of him because he's beating the shit out of jobbers. And Dan Spivey's 6'6", 6'7", 280. And then in our show in Flint, Michigan, where they still don't have very good water, that's bullshit. Basically, Dan had enough. Beat the shit out of him. They got in a fight in the locker room. He uppercut him from his knees and basically shattered his cheekbone. That was really something insane. Reenactments about that were something, and that's the thing. You don't know who you're fucking messing with. You can mess with the wrong person. More cocaine and the weight gain, and the wife is accepting because she didn't see it. She still saw the man that she loved. She probably was worried about him deep down, but she still loved him. We go to Mania 3, gets his head shaved. Bruce Beefcake was a heel to start the show, turned face during that show. Piper won. Piper retired. And then he exited the company in May. Piper left right after, but no. Adonis left in May of 87. Went to the AWA, had ballooned up to 400 pounds. Greg Gagne talked about how he's gassed. After 10 minutes, you gotta get in shape, Adrian. You're so good. We're worried about you. You're not a bad guy. We want you to get better. So Adrian gets serious, loses over about 100 pounds, wrestles in Japan. I wish they'd shown a little bit more of that footage. And him and Spivey apparently in Japan buried the hatchet. And then that tour with Japan was done. He was back home in LA and then left for Canada, a Newfoundland trip. There was a little bit of footage from Newsport with an E, because Canadian, Newfoundland, and go to a map and look up Newfoundland and just see how fucking isolated that whole area is. So Mike Kelly, the only survivor of the Kelly brothers, the Kelly twins, they showed a brief clip from an O. Henry ad that I totally forgot about. We get Canadian affiliates and stuff like that, and I also remember seeing commercials like that. My God, the O. Henry, I did not realize that was him. I was also way fucking younger, did not realize that was a wrestler, but I thought he looks like a wrestler, but as a kid, wasn't really that familiar. The Kelly twins wrestled all over Japan, that kind of stuff. I really felt bad for Mike Kelly. I really feel for him here. Only survivor of this 4-person wreck. They went everywhere. They wrestled all over. They were inseparable. Then Dave McKinney, who he was a promoter, journeyman wrestler, was nicknamed the Bear Man. He had bears with him. Pretty apt description. Ricky Johnson, Rocky Johnson's brother, also wrestled. I hope Ricky didn't end up like Rocky as far as how he dealt with underage girls. If you know, you know. Rocky Johnson deserves a burn in hell for all the stuff he did. That being said, Ricky Johnson seems like a nice guy, as far as I know. Dave owned Terrible Ted, the wrestling bear that various people, various wrestlers have talked about, including Bret Hart. Well, let's just say at one point, the bear kind of did what bears do and decided to attack some prey in the house, in the form of Dave's girlfriend, mauled her to death in the shower, and you thought what Anthony Perkins did as Norman Bates was bad. That's fucking terrible. I'm so sorry. And that probably scarred him. Definitely scarred up the woman more than anything. Perhaps that's why you don't keep a bear on your goddamn property. But after Newsport, they go to Gander, Newfoundland. Look that up, folks. That's like near the eastern part of Newfoundland, as far as I can tell. And about an hour away, there is a town called Dildo, Newfoundland. I reacted to that with the good Dildo. I'm sorry, Dildo. This is Batteries Not Included. I bet that's the most popular film there. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be serious. This is a serious discussion about Gander next to Dildo, Newfoundland. Who the hell names their town Dildo? It's a stimulating discussion. Let's get back to the serious discussion. Yeah, the accident happened at 8 p.m. It was broad daylight because parts of Canada are really weird with that, especially during the summer. And I'm not going to recount everything that Mike said about the wreck or what Ricky saw. This is haunting. You got to hear this shit. It's just, it is. I can only imagine how tough it's been for Mike to go on. I mean, really. And Ricky says there was stuff seared into his brain. God, this was haunting. Just absolutely haunting. Hearing the family talk about it, especially the wife, hearing about the news. There were a couple guys that worked for Bearman that robbed the corpse of Adrian. Probably robbed the corpses of the other guys. But why rob a dead man? I hope those guys, if they're still alive, are suffering mightily. And if they are dead, I hope they suffered mightily before their death. So, that being said, the terrible, haunting recountings of the wreck. Just good God. And then Ricky talks about how everybody, wrestlers that were still there went to a bar, went to a motel, caused $12K worth of damage, just breaking shit up. Wonder who paid for that goddamn thing. The promoter, by the way, Bearman, was in the deal in the car and died. So, who paid the wrestlers, I wonder? Nevertheless, next week is Abdul the Butcher. Oh boy, I'm going to have a lot of things to say about that wrestler. Mike denies the allegations that alcohol or drugs were involved. And you know what? I believe him. I'm not saying that maybe people weren't hopped up on things. Do I think they were doing it in the car? No. But, you gotta side with Mike here because, he could be protecting his brother. And I would tend to believe that he would probably want to be honest there. And Adrian's legacy, talking about the funeral, could Adrian have gotten back into WWF at the time, now WWE? Possibly. He was only, 34 years old? He would have been able to do 33, 34 years old. He was around that. He could have wrestled. Brett talked about facing him at a WrestleMania in 5 years. Him at Mania 8 instead of Piper would have been something. Brett versus Adrian at Mania 9 would have been something. Adrian's career, I'm not saying Adrian was a perfect guy, but boy, that stuff by Mike and Ricky, that was haunting shit. I feel really bad for the family. What do you think Adrian Adonis' career would have ended up being? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.